Alok, Dhir. Mr. Dhir, you heard Mr. Agarwal. Vedanta is the third player in the fray as far as SR Steel is concerned. What do you make of the order? Both of them have to pay dues and only then become eligible to submit revised bids.
I think it's a very important judgment, and it will pave the way for other matters which are coming under IBC from time to time. I think some very important points have been made here. First and foremost, they say that section 29AC, the cure is only under the second proviso to section 30 subsection 4, which means that the only method of curing an ineligibility is to pay the money which is required, and since they've held both the bids to be ineligible, they've asked them to pay up the money which is required before the bids are made eligible. However, very interestingly, the Supreme Court has used its power under Article 142 to allow these two entities to make a bid, and has also permitted the COC to examine these bids, but it will all be of course subject to the curing of the ineligibility. So I think it's a very, very material judgment, and I think they've also interpreted 29A as a more purposeful interpretation rather than just looking at the language of the section, and that the management has to be a de jure management and not a de facto management. So these are very important principles that have been laid down by the Supreme Court, and will henceforth in most of the matters which will come up under the IBC, this will be the guiding principles.
Mr. Dhir, Nilang and all the rest on the panel, please stay along, because I quickly need to move to two of my colleagues, Vijay Ganeshan Iyer as well as Abhimanyu Sharma. Abhimanyu, please fill us in with all the other details. You've been busy since morning at the Supreme Court. What are the other aspects of the fine print of the judgment?
Well, the judgment has also laid down certain norms with respect to approaching NCLT and NCLT. If at all the insolvency proceedings are still pending, the court has made it extremely clear that till the time the COC makes the final decision on the bid, NCLT and NCLT cannot intervene. However, NCLT and NCLT can be only approached if at all there is a question of law regarding its interpretation or its usage which needs to be addressed, and that tenure, that time itself would be exempt. Would be exempt from the 270-day resolution plan, clearly paving the way for an independence for the Committee of Creditors. They will have certain degree of autonomy as far as decision on bids are concerned. Apart from that, in this particular case, the court has made it extremely clear that 66% of majority of the Committee of Creditors will have to finalize the bid, and if at all the majority does not approve of any bid, then SR Steel will go into liquidation. The court clearly ruled that the Committee of Creditors has the authority to examine the plan on merits, while the COC had requested the court that the parties be given additional time. The court also ruled that timelines which are made according to IBC are mandatory in nature. It's also important to see that ineligible bidders don't wriggle out of clauses of IBC, and the court also observed that the management of a certain company may be a de jure fact, but the control of the same company is a de facto fact, and that also needs to be considered with respect to this particular case. And after paying the dues which are to be paid by New Metal and ArcelorMittal to become eligible for the bid, they will have a time of 8 weeks to submit their revised bids.
Right, Abhimanyu, just hold on to your thoughts. Since you were at the Supreme Court and you heard the bench pronouncing the verdict, give us a sense of what was the nature of dues linked to New Metal. We are all aware that ArcelorMittal is expected to pay the dues linked to Uttam Galva and KSS Petron, but I believe New Metal has also been asked to pay dues. Has the nature or quantum of those dues been specified by the Supreme Court, or is that unclear as of now?
The nature and quantum of the dues have not been stated in the verbal judgment. For that, of course, we will have to wait for a written copy. But nevertheless, the court has made it extremely clear that both the companies, if at all they have to become eligible for bidding, will have to pay the requisite and remaining dues, which clearly means that as of now, they are not eligible, and their eligibility is subject to the payment of the dues which is to be paid by them. As far as the possible dues by New Metal is concerned, that would only become clearer when the written copy of the judgment comes out.
Judgment will come back to you later. It's time now to move across to my colleague Vijay Ganeshan Iyer, who's been standing by at the SR Group headquarters in Mumbai from morning. Good morning, Vijay. You've heard the verdict. You've heard Abhimanyu filling us up with all the details. What's the mood outside SR House, the biggest NPA case in the country, and the top court has finally pronounced its verdict?
Ashwin, yes, on the expected lines, the promoter of SRs were glued on to television sets and perhaps, if I could say, watching ET now for this all-important verdict. But clearly, although they don't want to come on record, SR promoters are always been saying that SR Steel is one of the finest steel assets that is available in the country at this point of time, working to a capacity of close to 75%, producing close to 6 to 6.5 million tons of steel per annum. But most importantly, after today's judgment and the way the bids have panned out in the last 3 to 4 months, the aggressiveness that we are seeing among all players, the one big good news for SR promoters would be the way things are panning out, the bids are all likely to cross the 49,000 crores amount. If that happens, anything above 49,000 crores, clearly the unsecured creditors would also come in the picture, which means SR Group companies would also be eligible to get their share from the sale of SR Steel assets once 49,000 crores is settled towards the bank. So clearly the unsecured creditors have an exposure of close to 10 to 12,000 crores, those being primarily SR Group companies like SR Ports or SR Power. So the way the bids are panning out, anything above 49,000 crores, clearly the SR Group companies as unsecured creditors will also be eligible to get their share, and in all probability they are confident the way things are panning out, it's going to be an aggressive bidding process and it would perhaps cross the 49,000 crores and thereby also everybody others getting their pound of flesh from this asset of SR Steel.
Right, Vijay. That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The level of aggressiveness which is expected and can be expected from these parties going ahead. Now let's get back to the panel, and we also have Sandeep Parekh joining us. Sandeep, a very crucial takeaway from the judgment which my colleague Abhimanyu pointed out. He says that the Supreme Court has made one thing very clear: the NCLT or the NCLAT will come into the picture only after the COC has approved a resolution plan, and they will be approached only to answer questions of law, which means that there will not be any inordinate delays. They want to give equal emphasis to the COC. Isn't this very important? Because we have seen many bids and many resolution processes where these two forums have been knocked on, and that has led to the delay in the entire process. Your take?
Yes, I think it's a very good development, because it's giving primacy to the creditors who back in the driver's seat, instead of a kind of a legal strategy which plays out in court every alternate week. So I think it's a good development that the creditors are back at the driver's seat. On the larger picture, I think also it's a good development, because this will ensure that it's what is good for the system is if as many of the dues of as many entities are paid off for eligibility. I think that will be really good for the system overall.
Right. Gentlemen, we're running out of time, but I have one more question, and that's for Krishnava. Krishnava, so what's the key takeaway for all the main stakeholders as far as the IBC is concerned from this judgment, be it bidders or be it the COC?
So Ashwin, I think we'll wait for the judge, we'll wait for the order, but what I hear you, clearly the Supreme Court has taken two parts come out, that they're saying that the primacy of the COC is maintained and COC decides. And the second part is that they've effectively gone again back to the purposive interpretation of 29AC, where even after the amendment and the statute clarified is that it should be on the date of bidding. And technically on the date of bidding, both their arguments were they were not ineligible. But Supreme Court actually went beyond that, and I think, as Alok said, the de jure management, and said that, hey, I understand on the date of bidding you were not there, but in fact there is something behind that. And they went to a purpose of meaning, though there was a clarification in June saying that no, it won't be on the date of bidding. So if that is the case, probably which sets out the tone that Supreme Court wants to take not just a letter of law, but also the spirit even after it's been clarified. And as I said, the second one being the COC would have primacy to decide on that.
Right, you summarized it really well, Krishnava. On that note, gentlemen, we are completely out of time. Sandeep, Alok, Nilang, as well as Krishnava, thank you so much for taking out time and helping us dissect what is truly a precedent-setting verdict as far as the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Court is concerned.